Hi everyone, William here with the Grand Duke Dmitri Diary series, and I apologize for this glare, as I see it anyway, or reflection on the lens of my glasses. Not sure what to do with that about that, but lighting is not my strong point. But I guess I'm not gonna get up now and try to do something about it. Okay, so we are with Dmitri in November 1917 and in Tehran. And our recap, so in the previous diary entry, which was the 3rd of November, he described the first polo match of the winter season, which he himself played in. And now, today, I'm going to try to fit 3 diary entries in, the 4th of November, the 5th, and the 6th. And after that, we'll be going to one of the very interesting long entries. Okay, so let's get going. Saturday, 4th November. The day passed quietly and serenely. Marling left in the morning for a hunt that would last until Monday, and his wife and I remained à deux. We went riding in the direction of the Combe Road in the afternoon, where horses had been sent earlier. It was very pleasant and good. How fortunate that our piquant conversation had already taken place. It would have been too painful to spend the whole afternoon in strained silence. We dined à deux. That was a little stiff and tough, but luckily she went to bed early. I was tempted to go to the club, but I didn't. I resisted, and I too went to bed early. Sunday, 5th November, the second polo game took place. This time there were significantly more people, and once again the side that had Havierson easily won. I played a little better than on Friday. A few Persians from the gendarmerie played, but in the first place they played badly, and in the second place, because they were riding blank horses, they presented a danger to the other players because they blanked the whole ground and not paying attention to what they were doing, or simply ran over other people. During one such chukker, my horse was badly cut. I dined that day with Model. It seems that he has now taken our bank under his management instead of Dialemo. There were quite a few people, but I didn't stay very long at all and went to the club, where I stayed until 5 in the morning and played baccarat very profitably, because I won 1,700 tumans, which at the current rate of exchange is worth about 30,000 rubles. 6th November, Monday. Lady Marling and I went to Gulag for a picnic, bringing our lunch in a basket, and after lunch we went riding. It was amazingly nice and so terribly warm and pleasant. She was in an excellent mood. It's hard to believe that it's already November. In Petrograd, winter is now in full swing. 6th November is the Hussars' feast day, a regimental parade in a large manege at Tsarskaya Selo! Where has all of that gone? That time will truly never return. Poor Nicky, he is probably remembering the whole past. Every day something reminds him. After our riding excursion, we returned to Gulag, where we got into a car and drove back to Teheran. Upon our return, we found Marling, who had only just gotten back from the hunt. He looked tired and ill. Around 5 o'clock, Yevrenova and I went to the club Imperial. Once again, there was un après-midi musical. This time there were a few more people than on Friday. The music was provided by the balalaika players of the Cossack division. Some people even tried to dance. I myself played bridge with Madame de Romero, Yevrenova, and a Swede from the police, Major Buehling. I dined that day at the Kadlubovskis. It was their anniversary. There were Etter, Model, the Yevrenovs, and Madame Bloom. Afterwards, of course, we played bridge, but I was so tired that I didn't have the energy. All right, so that's a lot of ground to cover, but I think we'll do all right. So I'll start by saying that he wrote stiff and tough in English and spelled Tuff, Tuff, rather charming. Okay, and on that day, going riding with Lady Marling, yes, they'd had their big conversation, so that was fine. They enjoyed themselves during the ride, but dinner was stiff and tough, as he says it. Dinner was still a little strained. Luckily, she went to bed early. He makes me laugh sometimes. Got rid of her. She went to bed early. Well, maybe if she'd stayed up, he would have gone to the club then, but he didn't. He resisted the temptation. You know, he wasn't going to go to the club to socialize primarily. He was going to go to play baccarat. And that evening, at least, he did resist the temptation. All right, on the 5th, this is the second polo game, he was very dissatisfied with the participation of the Persian gendarmes. Their participation is, in fact, interesting. I don't know if Persians were banned from the Club Imperial. I honestly think not, because that would be something that Dmitri would specifically make a note of when he traveled to India with the Marlings and discovered that the Indians themselves, no matter what their social status, were barred from belonging to the clubs there, the European clubs. In this instance, the leaders, the commanders, the heads of the Swedish gendarmerie were Swedes, but there weren't many of them. I think there were only 5 or so, and the rest of the police officers were all Persian. And so maybe because they were police officers, did that mean that they qualified? Were they considered then not lower ranks? But anyway, they participated in this game or match. I don't know what you call polo. And apparently they were riding ponies that weren't really trained polo ponies. Maybe government horses. I don't know. Anyway, it didn't go well. They weren't quite sure what they were doing. Dmitri's horse got cut on the ear, which clearly distressed him. Yeah, what more can one say about that? Finally, in the longest of the diary entries, he and Lady Marling, they take their daily excursion. This time they go further than usual. They go to Gulhek, which perhaps you recall was the location of the British legation's summer residence. So they go there, they have their picnic. Makes me think a little of Omar Khayyam. Is that how you say it? With what is it? A loaf of bread, a jug of wine, and thou. But Dmitri doesn't mention that they did any kissing or anything like that. He definitely wanted to move away from that. Anyway, they had this picnic, and then there was a car waiting for them at the legation to drive them home. And he allows himself to do a little reminiscing, and not so much reminiscing as, well, thinking about the past, which usually he's very careful about. It's the 6th of November, which means that it's the feast day of His Majesty's own Hussars, the Guards Hussars Regiment. And back in Russia, they would be having a parade, they would be having a dinner. Every regiment had a feast day. I don't know if that's true or was true in other European countries. Definitely in the U.S., regiments wouldn't have had a feast day per se, because that's tied into orthodoxy and the patron saint or whatever of the regiment, I believe. But anyway, it was a big deal in Russia, and the Grand Dukes constantly made the rounds of these, and sometimes even the Grand Duchesses, because members of the imperial family had their own guards units as a rule, sometimes line units, even the women, even the girls sometimes. Dmitri's was, of course, the 2nd Guards Rifle Brigade. But the 6th, or the Guards Hussars were Nicholas's. And I think his father's before him. And so that would have been a big occasion for him. And Dmitri probably would have attended. And it's interesting that he says that will never return, that he uses the word never, meaning even if the Bolsheviks are cleared out, we're not going to go back to that old way of doing things. And I wonder if that's what he really meant, or if he was just sort of feeling depressed in the moment and thought, well, that will never happen again, without really believing that. It would be interesting to know. And then he talks about Nicholas, poor Nicky. He doesn't call him Uncle Nicky. And generally speaking, now that he's an adult, I don't know if he called him Nicky to his face. Maybe he did. I don't know. But at least in his diaries, he's no longer calling him Uncle Nicky, just Nicky. And yeah, you know, thinking about how Nicky must be every day reminded of something in the past, and wistful and thinking back. And yeah, that was probably true, but I think Nicky also had bigger things to think about, you know, his safety, the safety of his family, what was going on. Well, people can think about all kinds of different things. It doesn't have to be, I'll only think about this. Anyway, it's interesting that when Dmitri himself is thinking about Nicholas, that this is what he's imagining Nicholas doing. So make of that what you will. Why wasn't Dmitri invited on this hunt that Marling went on, this 3-day hunt? He obviously likes to go on these hunts. Well, who knows? Who knows? Now, he goes off to the Club Imperial, not with Lady Marling, who stays at home, but with Yevrenova, and the wife of the man who I believe was not the director, but he worked for the Imperial Bank of Persia. Her name was Ksenia. And, you know, keep an eye on that relationship. I know he does have an assignation with a woman at some point, but it's been so long since I've read these diary entries. I can't remember if it's Ksenia Yevrenova or not. Bloom, Madame Bloom, who was part of this little bridge group, was the wife of the Russian consul. Madame Romero was the wife of the Spanish minister to Teheran, who was also the president of the Club Imperial. Bueling, I don't know, you know, he was one of the Swedes, one of the Swedish gendarme leaders, and he had won the Club Imperial steeplechase back in September. So, not sure why he wasn't playing polo, or maybe he was, and Dmitri didn't mention him by name. Anyway, what do we have next time? As I said, we're going to plunge back into another one of the long diary entries, 15th November this time, and very, very interesting stuff. We're going to hit the ground running with the Bolsheviks, with Trotsky, mentioned by name, Trotsky, Lenin, what's going on with Kerensky, what Dmitri thinks should be going on with Kerensky, and this is going to be a great entry, a very long one. Felix Yusupov will come into it, so I think you'll want to come back for those. I hope so, and I'll see you then. Bye.